Hi there, thank you for joining me for today's live. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Mason, and today we're going to be focusing in on the area of developing healthy boundaries. So we're going to identify some of the common blockages that we have to developing healthy boundaries. We're also going to look at the ways that we can subconsciously create boundaries in an unhealthy and unhelpful way, and we're also going to do a clearing around this area. So if you would like to receive the changes, the clearings, if you would like to have your beliefs changed, all you have to do is say yes and you will receive it. So the way that I'm going to be doing the clearing today is I'm going to be going into meditation to connect to divine source energy, and from here we're going to shift out your limitations. So welcome, and if you know anyone who might be interested in this, I would love for you to share this with them, perhaps tag them or live stream it. All right, welcome everyone. Hey Ellie, hey Kerry. How is everybody doing today? Hi Hilda, nice to see you. Hi Jasna. Hi Exina. All right, so let's get started. So boundaries, we can have many different boundaries: emotional, physical, financial, and energetic. Boundaries are essential for us to live a healthy life, to have fulfilling relationships, and to allow abundance in. So without healthy boundaries, often what can occur is we find ourselves giving and giving and giving, and we become exhausted. We often become sick. It's something that can cause us to stay in relationships that are not good for us. And often the core of that is really not valuing ourselves, because there is a direct relationship between not really valuing ourselves, not knowing our value, and having unhealthy and poor boundaries. Hi Fayeza, nice to see you. So when we have poor boundaries or no boundaries, it can affect all areas of our life: physical, emotional, financial, and in many other ways as well. So what I have found is, if you don't know how to set boundaries, often what will happen is your subconscious will find a way to set them for you. We learn about boundaries through our experiences, primarily in our formative years when we're very young. We learn through what we see, what we observe, and a lot of us would have grown up in families where there was no boundaries, or there was poor boundaries, or perhaps the boundaries were very rigid, and we have a tendency to copy these patterns, to mimic them. And when you've grown up in a home where there have been no boundaries, or when you have tried to assert your boundaries, you have been faced with disapproval or punishment. Often you have a lot of limiting belief systems around this area that don't allow you to develop and have and implement your boundaries. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So if you struggle with boundaries, what can happen is your subconscious finds ways to set them. I'm going to give you an example of a client that I had. My client came to me and he actually had a lot of pain in his body. And what he noticed was this pain would actually come about when he was due to go to social events and engage with people in a social way. So what we discovered was he didn't have any boundaries, and in his early years he experienced a lot of aggression, a lot of violence. So based on that, he formed perceptions about people, such as people are dangerous, people can't be trusted, I need to be alone in order to be safe. Now, he also had the conscious awareness that not all people are like this, yet there was an aspect of his psyche on the subconscious level that didn't believe that. Through his early experience, he had formed all of these perceptions, and we have a tendency to generalize things, particularly as children. So if we had experiences in our formative years with people around us who were not safe, who were threatening, often what we do is we actually define all people to be that way. So he had these beliefs on a subconscious level. So what we found was he had a fear of being around people. That fear was really in place to try and protect him from people. And when he didn't listen to that and he would attempt to attend these social events, he would get the pain. So it was actually an aspect of his psyche creating it. And it wasn't to try to make him feel uncomfortable. It wasn't to sabotage him. It was actually trying to protect him from getting close to people, because he had these associations with people that they're dangerous. So that's what can happen when we don't know how to set boundaries, or we have fear around setting them. The subconscious mind can create ways in order to have them. There are various different ways that the subconscious can do this. It could be through creating sickness, helplessness, pain, resentment, anger, or in another way. So there's various different ways that we can set boundaries. So another thing that's quite common that I've noticed is when we haven't been able to set boundaries and we have grown up in an environment where there has been rage and aggression, what can happen is we form this belief it's dangerous to set boundaries. We form a fear, if I set boundaries, I'll be destroyed. These beliefs and fears come from our past memories, our past experiences, and we then expect that in the future. So because the subconscious also knows that you do need boundaries, it creates ways to actually have them. When you can actually develop a new way of having boundaries, a healthier way, what can happen is you let go of the old patterns and behaviors that have been limiting you. So that might be the sickness, it might be lack of money, it might be pain, it might be suffering, it might be holding on to the energy of being helpless, or it might be something else. Something else that can happen is people will desire to have a boundary, yet they feel like they can't set it because they have this underlying fear about what will happen, which comes from the previous experiences. So they take anything and everything, and then they get to a point and there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of rage, and they actually act out. It's like they explode. So really what they're doing here is they're using the rage or the anger or whatever other emotion it is to say no, to set a boundary. Again, when you learn to develop healthy boundaries, you don't need to hold on to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to find all of the ways that you learned to set boundaries, to have boundaries, and everything that you learned about boundaries from your environment or has been handed down to you that is not helpful, that's actually limiting you. And we're going to bring in the knowing from divine source energy, what these ways of being, what these behaviors and what these habits are really doing for you in relation to what you believe or imagine. Because when you have the awareness of what it's really doing, it can allow you to let go of them. So let's do that. And if you'd like to receive that, all you have to do is say yes. So let's show you a new way of setting boundaries, emotional, physical, financial, and on an energetic level. And let's bring in the knowing that you actually have a right to set boundaries. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back and find all of those past experiences that you had in regards to boundaries that create fear around it. So if, for example, you had an experience similar to what I described earlier, you may have actually formed the belief that it's dangerous to set boundaries, it's threatening, or there may be a fear that you will be destroyed in some way. So these come from your past experiences or your past observations. In those times, it can feel really, really scary, and often what we do, an aspect of our psyche gets stuck in the past, whilst the rest of us continues to grow, to learn, to develop new abilities, new skills, new habits. but there's a part of us that's in the past. So what we're going to do is we're just going to show you on all levels that those experiences are over, they're actually finished, and you're safe now. And we're going to actually release the trauma from that. We're going to release the shock, and we're going to release the limiting future expectations that you have in regards to boundaries based on this. We're going to release all the emotions that you experienced in those times that you couldn't express. All of the energy that's actually stuck in your body, we're going to take that out. So often we learn something through these experiences. So if you had a similar experience to this, what might it be that your soul actually wanted to learn from this? Your being wanted to learn. Let me know if something comes through. Now, for some of you, it may have taught you to actually recognize your own boundaries and to respect your boundaries and to respect other people's boundaries, because when our boundaries aren't respected, we know what it feels like. So often what we'll do is we'll hold on to the energy to remind us to do something different. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the knowing that you can respect your boundaries. You know what that is, what that looks like, and that it's possible. And that you can respect other people's boundaries, that you know your boundaries, you recognize them, and you know them for others too. And you can have this knowing without holding on to the old energy to remind you. So Mila says to protect yourself. So in what way? Now, Lena says to express myself without fear. Okay, so the fear of expression comes from the past experience, comes from the beliefs and the old energy. As you release the energy, there won't be any fear there. So we're actually going to show you that you can express yourself. We're going to show you a whole new way of self-expression, and we're going to clear out your blockages to expressing yourself. All of your negative associations that you have with self-expression, such as if I express myself, I will be judged, I'll be criticized, or I'll be punished, we're going to release that. That was an experience or a set of experiences that you had, but that doesn't need to be your experience in the future. So we're going to release that now, and we're going to show you that you can express yourself with ease. And we're going to let go of the old energy. Okay, so someone says to show anger before someone attacks me. Right, so then there's this idea, if I show anger, it's the best way or the only way to set a boundary. But that's not the truth. That often comes from actually observing someone around you setting boundaries, setting boundaries through anger or through rage. And often there can be a conflict there, because on one hand, you don't want to do that, and not because you have these judgments around it. Often when we're impacted by it, we make a decision, I'm never going to do that. So the judgment around it is the thing that can keep it locked in place. And then on the other hand, there's an idea, a conflicting belief, this is the only way to set boundaries. And that might come from your experience of when you did get really angry, you were hurt, you were listened to, or someone backed off. But usually it's because you don't know another way, because you haven't had that experience, so you don't have another reference point. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you new references, new ways of being, so that you can do it in a way that feels good for you. Because often as well what happens is we take it and take it and take it and take it, whatever it is, and then we actually feel angry and go no more. But if you can actually say no and assert your boundaries from the beginning, you're not actually going to get to that space where you need the anger. So let's show you that. The other energy that is coming up is that anger is power. So if I let it go, I'll have no power. And then underlying that is the feeling of being powerless, which comes from the past experiences where you felt powerless. The truth is you're not powerless, but you could feel powerless. And that comes from the old experiences. So we're going to find those old times where you felt you had no power, you felt helpless, and we're going to just align your energy with the knowing it's over, and we're going to bring resolution in there. And we're going to show you that you can express boundaries in a healthy, clear way, that you know what that looks like in every situation, and we're going to set it up so that new information is constantly brought through, so that you know what to do and how to be with people in all situations. You're constantly updated with that information, and you can know that without holding on to the anger. Anger is not bad, anger is not wrong, but often where we have had the experience of growing up in an environment where there was a lot of anger, we form the belief that anger is wrong, it hurts people, it's dangerous. So we try to suppress it in ourselves, and then we get to a point where it all comes out. Anger is something that can actually help you in certain situations. If someone was to violate your boundary, it is an energy that can come up that can be used to help you to assert your boundary, or to protect yourself, or to take some kind of action. It can become destructive when you actually hold it all in. When you suppress your anger, that often comes from feeling like it's bad or wrong or dangerous. There could even be a belief for some of you that it's evil. That can come from a child's perspective, where you actually had the experience of someone doing something evil when they were angry, or you perceived it in that way. Because often we perceive something in a way, but it's not really the higher truth about what is going on. So if you have these ideas about anger, you suppress it. And then when you actually act it out, you start to blame yourself, and you feel guilty, ashamed, you feel like you're evil, you feel like you're wrong. But the truth is that there can be a healthy anger. It becomes destructive when you hold it in. When you hold anger, rage, and emotions in, they can become destructive. There's many different ways they can play out. If you hold a lot of anger in, it can manifest as pain in your body. If you hold a lot of anger in and you don't express it, it could actually manifest as some kind of addiction. So what you do is you actually engage in the addictive behavior, which could be using a substance or a behavior like something doesn't come to mind right now, will come back to me though, but you engage in the behavior as a way to disconnect from the anger because it feels too much. So let's bring you in a new way for you to actually express your emotions, for your emotions to actually be regulated, and that you can do that in a healthy way that's good for you, without holding on to these old beliefs and patterns that it's destructive, it's toxic, it destroys, it's evil. So let's do that. And let's just align you with accurate perception of what it is. Because if you have these judgments, you'll always fight it. And if you become it, and we are all energies, and anger, as I said, can have a purpose. What you do is you go into judgment and shame and believing that you're wrong. So anytime that's happened, we're just going to release all of that energy now. So all of the old ways that you have been using to set boundaries, that is a limitation for you. What we're going to do is we're just going to release the patterns, the energies, and everything associated with it now that can be transformed. Okay guys, how are you doing? So we're going to release the belief that anger, rage is the only way to protect yourself, and we're actually going to give you a new updated way. And you know, we often have a belief, this is how I protect myself, but actually by holding on to that, it can contribute to illness, it can contribute to keeping you stuck, because when you have a lot of anger, what can happen, it's an energy that can keep you stuck. Take a moment to recall a time where you felt really angry, or a lot of rage, or some other emotion that was quite intense. Was it easy for you to move forward, and did your manifestations come in with ease, or did it feel hard to manifest? Did you feel stuck in it? So most people feel stuck. So what we're going to do is we are just going to unblock everything that needs to be unblocked, and we're going to release everything that needs to be released now. And you know, underlying that can be a feeling, I don't have the strength to say no. I don't have the power. But the truth is, you do have the power. You were born with that power. You were born with the energy of being assertive and being able to say no. You'll see it in very young children. It's the beliefs that you form later that sit on top of that power. So we're going to release that, and we're going to realign you back to that energy of power and assertiveness. So another thing that can actually hold you back from setting boundaries is this fear that you're going to be abandoned. This is something that people will often use to try to get you to be in your place. So there's different roles that we can play in different situations, including family situations. And you know, often people are very comfortable in their roles, and when one person steps out of that role, it can affect the whole dynamic. Often someone else is expected to step into that role. So often group members, what they do is they try to pull you back into your role, and that can often be by withdrawing from you, by abandoning you emotionally, abandoning you physically, and the agenda there is to get you to go back into your role. This happens in a lot of families, and it can be something that's actually learned. So it can be a learned behavior that family members learn from their parents, and perhaps they learn it from their parents, and it's a learned behavior, and they're so unconscious about it that they don't know that they're doing it, and it can be handed down. Or it can be done on purpose. So in order to move beyond that, you actually need to look at, well, what is the fear of being abandoned? What do I believe or fear will happen if I'm abandoned? So if you have that idea, what might that be? And sometimes it's because you don't believe that you're actually capable of doing something yourself that you need to do. Sometimes it's a belief that you're incapable of something and you need someone else. But the truth is you're capable of everything. The higher truth is you're part of that divine energy, so you can create and generate anything. So someone said, I'll be left alone. So then what happens if you're alone? What does it bring up for you if you're alone? So let me know. So what we're going to do is we're going to align you with the truth about what you're truly capable of, and all of the ideas that you have in regards to what you're not capable of, that's actually allowing you to be manipulated and controlled by this energy of being abandoned. We're actually just going to release all of that now. This can be a form of emotional abuse where people use your emotions, your fear of being abandoned, or some other emotion as a way to get you to do what they want you to do. So that fear of being alone can also come from a younger time when we were little. And you know, if you have that fear of being abandoned, chances are you were abandoned at one point. And when you are abandoned, whether it's emotionally or physically, when you're small, it can feel very painful. It can also feel painful when you're older. So what can happen is you get stuck in that old energy, you get stuck in that time. And often where it's been something that's happened repetitively, an aspect of us can stay there. So we actually, it's almost like on an emotional level, there's an aspect of us that might be stuck at that age. So it could be 5, it could be 7. And 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds don't feel capable of taking care of themselves. So often what they do is they hold on to everyone around them because they fear, if I let go, something bad will happen. I'm not capable of taking care of myself. But the truth is that you are capable. So we're going to update you with that knowing, and we're going to release all of the emotions connected to that, all of the places where you were abandoned, you did feel alone. We're going to clear the belief that you're all alone in this world. The higher truth is that you can never be alone because you're part of the energy of the divine essence. So we're going to align you with that truth now. And you have to also be willing to be willing to see where someone is manipulating you or trying to manipulate you, because often we don't want to see that. And what happens is we have these blinkers on, so we can't see it, and when we can't see it, we get hooked into it. So would you be willing to know that? Because if you can know it, you can see it, and you can't get hooked in. Your intuition is your biggest protection. So can we align you with that truth and unblock your intuition and align you with the energy of really being able to trust your intuition? Someone said, I love being alone as well as a child. I wanted to be alone, and that's fine. Some people do love being alone. Sometimes we use isolation too, and this may not apply to you. This is just something that's been triggered in my mind when you said that, as a way to have a boundary. Just looking at your comments. Someone said, could an autoimmune also be due to being unable to recognize boundaries? Yes, it can. So autoimmune diseases, they are connected with your system attacking itself. So there would be certain belief systems that would go along with that. And these belief systems are formed when you're very small. So if you've had a lot of attack externally, it can manifest in your body internally. And also holding on to something can also be a way of setting a boundary. So if you struggle to set boundaries, this may not apply to you, but just talking in the general sense, if you struggle to set boundaries and you've actually developed some kind of condition, and what can happen is the subconscious can realize, oh, there's a benefit to this. If I'm sick, then I don't have to do things that people expect of me. I don't have to meet their expectations. So actually, if I have to pick between the two, I'd rather hold on to this. But as you develop and strengthen your boundaries, you can let go of any condition if it's associated with it. Yeah, so Mila says, being alone because I can't handle other people, being very close. So there sounds to be some conflict there. On one hand, you want to be alone, but on the other hand, you're saying, please don't leave me. So there was a comment there earlier that you need people for support, and that support aspect can come from feeling incapable of doing something. Now, the higher truth is there's plenty of support out there for you. There is plenty of people that you can rely on. There's plenty of people who have strengths that you can draw upon, but actually you may not actually recognize that. So we're going to align you with that truth. We're going to clear out all the old energy associated with being abandoned, and we're going to resolve all of that. Okay, guys, how are you all doing? So going forward, what I would encourage you to do is start to get really clear on what your boundaries are. When you can't say no, when you struggle with boundaries and you struggle to communicate and assert your boundaries, that affects you on an energetic level as well. So you have to actually learn to assert your boundaries. Some of us don't know what our boundaries are, so you need to start getting clear on it. What is comfortable for me, what is not comfortable. Often when someone does something and we start to get angry, that's actually an indication that someone has overstepped a boundary. But in saying that, it's not always the case, because often what occurs when we're engaging and interacting with people, the interactions can trigger our old feelings, which are evoked, and then we actually transfer them onto someone else. So that's not always the case, but that's just something to pay attention to. So what I would encourage you to do is get clear on what your boundaries are with certain people in your life. They may be different with certain people, and you need to start to practice them. You need to start to say no, and there's many different ways you can say no. So what I would encourage you to do is write a list of all the ways that you can say no and start to practice it, and really start to practice it first of all with people that you feel comfortable with and safe with. And this is something that is going to actually allow you to build a muscle. You know, as you do this, you might notice that certain things come up, certain emotions come up. You need to then find a way to actually work through them, to clear out the beliefs and the energies. So someone says, often people don't respect my boundaries. Yeah, and that can be where we don't respect our own boundaries too, because often what we do is we're not really clear on our boundaries. So we say yes, we say no, and then we say yes. And the message that that sends out to people is, we don't mean what we say, so they don't take us seriously. So you've got to be clear, and you've got to be really consistent in your boundaries so that people actually know and get that message. And then if you have people in your life who are not respecting your boundaries, you might need to look at those relationships and look at if you want to hold on to them. And it might be that you need to actually limit the time that you spend with them too. All right, guys, thank you very, very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the session today. A couple of things. So please make sure to drink plenty of water. You're going to continue to release energy. I would like to finish by doing a short grounding with you in a moment. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is I do have a really powerful course coming up next week. It's a 3-day course. It's called Empowering Your Life Through Setting Healthy Boundaries. This course is a course that I have developed myself. It comes from my 12 years experience doing this work, and I incorporate a lot of different things I have learned through working with clients, through my own experience, channeled information, information from methods that I have used, and also from my academic background as well. So I would love for you to join me. It's a really, really powerful course. It's based around clearing, so it's 3 full days of clearing. We're going to learn all about boundaries: emotional, physical, financial, spiritual. Often we actually will reject money because we have poor boundaries. So we can have beliefs like, I have to share everything with everyone, or I have to share everything with my family. And we can have beliefs like, I have to work hard for money. So consciously we say, universe, bring us money, but subconsciously the subconscious says, no thanks, because if you have money, you're gonna have to work really hard, you're gonna have to share it with everyone, so you're gonna be exhausted, so why bother? So it can really impact all areas of our life. We look at a number of core issues, core areas. We look at childhood trauma. We look at family dynamics. We look at family trauma. We look at everything connected to boundaries, and we're actually getting to the roots of it, and we're clearing it. We are working on spiritual influences from an energetic perspective, clearing out what is causing you to be affected by influences outside of yourself. And there is much, much more. So I'm going to share the link for this in case you're interested in joining me. And the other thing is, I want to do a very short grounding with you now. So I'd like you to close your eyes. And I'd like you to take a deep breath in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. So I'd like you to imagine that there is a white light in your heart space. And I'd like you to imagine this white light going down into the earth. And it's going to travel down about 500 miles until you reach the center of the earth. When you reach the center of the earth, you're going to meet another really bright light. This is the earth energy. So I'd like you to grab this and draw it up through the soles of your feet, up through your body, through your chakras, all the way up to your crown, and center yourself in your heart. And then when you're ready, take a deep breath in and breathe out. The other thing I wanted to mention to you guys is I have some really exciting news. I'm going to be releasing my first book next month in December. It's called Transcend Your Trauma, and this book it's a combination of my life experiences, working with clients and working with trauma, and what I have discovered through working with trauma and effective ways to actually heal it. So watch this space for the book, and have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks again for joining. So I'm going to leave it there for today. If you joined late, please do go back and listen to the replay. You will receive the clearings. Okay, thank you again. Bye for now. I will share the link in 2 minutes below, so you'll be able to look at the upcoming course next weekend. Bye-bye.